So, my number one fandom is actually theme parks. I don't know if that's actually a fandom. Like, what did we call things that we liked before we invented the word fandom? So that's why you're getting a super topical review of Tomorrowland in 2017, because this is a movie that I feel very strongly about. And I'm going to give this video a really aggressive title, so you probably know that those aren't positive feelings. I know this movie was a huge financial flop because people were just like, I didn't like it that much, whatever. But this was actually the movie I was looking forward to the most in 2015. And the new Star Wars was coming out in 2015, so for context. So instead of letting this film fail with dignity and be forgotten by most people, I'm gonna cruelly drag it back into consciousness and dissect all the reasons that I think it didn't work. Because honestly, if anyone was gonna like Tomorrowland, it would have been me. And I did not like it. Oh, and I superficially organized my points into a numbered list, because when you make a really long video, you need to have like a list for people to hold their interest. I thought of 7 things for my list. Number 1, the first 10 minutes are like part of a completely different and much better movie. So the movie opens with a flashback to George Clooney's childhood in 1964. He's a little boy who's like 10 years old and he lives on a farm, and he built a rocket pack out of like spare lawnmower parts or something because he believes in innovation and inspiration. So he takes his rocket pack to the New York World's Fair to show it off. And he goes to this inventors exhibition and he shows his rocket pack to Hugh Laurie, who's an evil, crabby scientist. We don't know he's evil yet. It's very subtle. And he also makes friends with a little robot girl named Athena, who's his age. And then he goes through a portal that's hidden inside It's a Small World that takes him to this futuristic city called Tomorrowland, where all these inventors live in harmony and make whimsical future tech. And I'm like, whoa, this is great. Sign me up. And then the movie is not actually about that. So now we're following a modern teenager named Casey. She's like smart, but she's a rebel. And she finds an artifact from Tomorrowland. So the movie is like Casey is trying to get to Tomorrowland. So this is a looking for clues movie, a looking for clues and going on a trip movie. Those movies are boring though. Later in the film you get very brief glimpses and flashbacks of Tomorrowland in its heyday. It's like all these smart little children running around in these 1960s space cadet uniforms that look like little tennis outfits, just running around this dazzling futuristic landscape, like making inventions and making friends, and it's like this retro futuristic Hogwarts. That's a really cool movie. It's cool and cheesy and timeless. It sounds like it has franchise potential to me, but that's not the movie that we got. We got like National Treasure, but less focused. Number 2, the main character. I have no hate for this actress. I'm sure she can be really great and stuff, but she just feels really miscast here. I mean, the same year she played an adult romantic lead in a Nicholas Sparks movie, she's cast here as like a starry-eyed teenager in high school. I think Casey's supposed to be like a 16-year-old, and the actress is obviously a grown woman, so it's just really weird, like watching her go around like, Willikers, Mr. Clooney, I'm definitely not 25 years old. And all of her lines are very big and exaggerated. Does she have a lot of stage acting experience? Is she just directed this way? Nobody else in the movie's acting like this, including the actual children. It's even funnier because they put her in like the baseball cap the whole movie and all these loose layers of baggy clothing to try to make her look younger, and it's just really awkward. Number 3, the chase sequences. So a whole lot of this movie is just chase sequences. Casey goes to a comic store to try to find out about the pin, and she gets chased by robots. It's weird because it's the most slapsticky moment in the movie. Not in like a funny way, but like there's cartoon sound effects. It doesn't really feel like the whole rest of the movie. Then there's this little bit of downtime and exposition. Then Casey meets up with George Clooney and they get chased by robots. They gotta get in the teleportation thing and teleport away. And then they arrive there at the Eiffel Tower. Oh man, they're getting chased by robots. They gotta take off in a rocket ship. Those last 2 consecutive chase scenes are so weird because they really do happen like back to back. And they're both like the main characters have to get into a futuristic vehicle that might not work right, so they're scared, and they gotta get in and escape robots by going to another location. So why wasn't the first futuristic vehicle just the spaceship to Tomorrowland? Like, story-wise, why did they go to Paris first? Like, hey, we got this secret inventor society called Plus Ultra, and this weird connection to Walt Disney, and that all ties into the futuristic city somehow. And we don't really know how the clearly evil Hugh Laurie ended up running things, but that's okay. This is a good use of our screen time. Number 4, a perversion of everything that I love. Not to be dramatic or anything. It's really subtle and stuff, but I love theme parks, and especially vintage theme parks and extinct theme park attractions. I like the level of showmanship that goes into them, but also that level of inherent transience for any theme park experience for any given person. I mean, if you look at all the stuff that's changed over the years, a lot of attractions and even whole theme parks just exist in people's memories and imaginations, like on this other plane of existence. Kind of like Tomorrowland in the movie. Anyway, I hear about this movie and I'm like, whoa, Brad Bird, I love Brad Bird. He's tying sci-fi elements into the history of Disneyland? That sounds awesome. Oh my god, a recreation of the 1964 New York World's Fair in beautiful living color. Oh my god, they're playing It's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. Whoa, the little girl's dress looks like the Epcot orb. I still don't know if that was actually the intent, but that's what it looks like to me. Oh, check it out, those are real cast members operating It's a Small World, but they're in the vintage versions of the costume. Oh wait, that's over. We left the World's Fair. Hey wait, it's the retro future. Robots and rocket packs. Oh wait, that's over too. Whoa, talented child actors? Those are really really hard to find. I love kid adventure movies. Oh, the main character is this adult woman. Hey, it's the guy from Key and Peele, one of my favorite comedy shows. Oh, he's only in it for a second, and they didn't give him anything very funny to do. So I feel like you can't bring up Tomorrowland without mentioning that the movie was marketed with this alternate reality game. I don't actually know if a lot of people know this. So they sent out a series of clues to Disney fans to lead them on a treasure hunt that would help them find out stuff about the Optimist Society, which is the secret club of inventors in the movie. Like, you went to the carousel where Walt Disney took his kids and had the idea for Disneyland, and if you got on the right horse and wrapped the seatbelt around the pole, it would form letters that spelled out a code word. You would go to the diner where Walt always had lunch when he was working at his studios, and if you ordered Walt's favorite chili, the waitress would bring you a can, and if you opened it, instead of chili, it had all these secret documents in it. You went to the Disneyland train station, and it was playing out a secret message in Morse code instead of the opening day speech. The idea that the visionary minds responsible for creating Disneyland were also working on secret projects behind the scenes is a pretty compelling backdrop for a sci-fi story. But oh, that's not really in the movie. George Clooney and Casey kind of pause in this secret room in the Eiffel Tower, and George Clooney's there was a secret society of visionaries trying to make the world a better place a long time ago. And Casey's Willikers, Mr. Clooney. Casey's oh, that's fascinating, tell me more. But then, whoops, the bad guys show up. Time for another chase sequence. It's weird that the marketing was so focused on Walt Disney and Disneyland when that was so sidelined in the movie. If you're not gonna go full hog with that, why mention it at all? The World's Fair is there, but very briefly and kind of inconsequentially. Oh, and the robots are called audio animatronics, which I'm gonna go on a mini rant here. I'm gonna get comfortable for my long rant. So, not all robots at Disney parks are called audio animatronics. Audio animatronic was a phrase that was invented by Walt Disney for his later models of robots, which used a new technology that let him sync up their movements to pre-recorded audio tracks. So audio animatronic was basically a programmable showman robot, like the ones in Pirates of the Caribbean that were able to lip sync to dialogue, or the birds in the Tiki Room that can perform a whole musical show. The older robots in Jungle Cruise just perform repetitive movement cycles that aren't synced up to anything, so those are not called audio animatronics. If a robot thinks for itself and interacts with its environment, there's also a different word in Imagineering for that, and I think it's autonomatronics. So, were the robots in Tomorrowland invented by Walt Disney? Because if they weren't, they wouldn't be called audio animatronics, because that's a trademarked phrase. And if they were, they still wouldn't be called that. Did they all used to perform in a theme park? and they got an upgrade. That would actually be cool and creepy, but that's not the case. Basically what I'm saying is they just called them audio animatronics because it's a familiar phrase. If Athena pointed to the robots and went, "Those are robots," then nothing would be lost. But it was decided in writing that if they called them audio animatronics, the Disney fans would go, "I know what audio animatronics are. They're not those, but it's familiar to me." 5. That awkward Hugh Laurie monologue. So you remember all those chase scenes where they gotta get away from robots? Well, the main villain is Hugh Laurie. You saw him in those first 10 minutes, acting obviously evil. Well, he's back. I know you don't know a lot about him, but he's back. And he's wearing a crazy space jacket. So he's got this big monologue about how people these days just want to watch dystopian movies. And I guess that's because mankind is evil or something. So, like, if somebody hands you the platform to make a movie, you should just make the kind of movie that you want to make. Not a movie that's bad, and then at the end, Hugh Laurie delivers a dramatic monologue about the kind of movie you want to make. The best part is that Hugh Laurie doesn't even make sense. At the beginning, he discourages young Frank Walker from making his rocket pack because there's no utility to it. He's like, what does it do? How does it help humanity? Inventions have to help humanity. They can't just be there to inspire creativity and optimism. But he's telling Frank Walker this at the 1964 New York World's Fair. A World's Fair where Walt Disney's crown jewel exhibit was, "Let's all go climb in a convertible and look at my fantastical robot dinosaurs." And I know that happened in this universe because Small World exists. I know that because Hugh Laurie goes on It's a Small World directly after talking to Frank Walker. "Hey kid, we can't just make inventions because they're cool and fun. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to go on a whimsical boat ride through a pageant of living dolls." What this whole speech makes me think of is Pirates of the Caribbean. You know, when they made Pirates of the Caribbean, pirates weren't like a thing. They were kind of like this antiquated concept. And then Pirates of the Caribbean was a huge success, which made pirates a big pop culture goldmine again. It turns out the way to get a culture interested in pirates is to just make a good movie about pirates. You know that scene in Pirates of the Caribbean where they're about to break the curse and Captain Barbossa is standing on that big pile of gold and he's like making a rousing speech to his men? What if instead Captain Barbossa just kind of shambled up onto that gold pile and started griping about how nobody likes pirates anymore? "Yar, kids these days just want to watch Spider-Man movies. That be why we aren't actually pirates and are just pretending to be. 'Tis a hostile social climate for the likes of a pirate. Yar." And then they all take off their pirate costumes and just go home by walking on land. Number 6. That jerk Hugh Laurie is wrong about me. The whole ending to the movie is so frustrating because guess what, Hugh Laurie? I did want to see an optimistic, old-fashioned, retro future movie. I am also charmed by that era where people just made pointless, stupid inventions to make them feel happy and excited about the future, like robot butlers and underwater cities and stuff. And that's why I bought a ticket to a movie called Tomorrowland. The big twist in the movie is Casey's trying to get to Tomorrowland, and when she finally does, it's just a barren wasteland with Hugh Laurie in a crazy space jacket. And all that stuff she was being shown of this amazing city doesn't exist anymore, and it's just ads. And I'm like, I'm Casey. I got shown all these cool ads for an awesome movie, and I get here and it's just Hugh Laurie in a crazy space jacket. This movie ends with a montage of a bunch of kid visionaries getting summoned to a new Tomorrowland to make an amazing future together. So it's setting up a sequel that does sound a lot cooler. But unfortunately this movie was lame and it tanked, and now a sequel is never gonna get made. And it probably also effectively killed that Space Mountain movie they were thinking about making. And hey, look what I have. A sweatshirt. No, I have a Tomorrowland pin. You know how long it took me to get this pin? Like 3 months. While the movie was tanking at the box office, these things were selling like hotcakes. Like they'd get them in stock and they would immediately sell out. And they kept making them for like a year because they kept selling. People were like proudly wearing them around and stuff. And it's not because this movie had fans, like it obviously didn't. It's because people liked the idea of the movie and they wanted to like it. So the interest was there. Tomorrowland just didn't deliver. Oh my god, you guys, look what just arrived. Speak of the devil, right? Sorry, Tiki Birds. It's just a stack. Like, Should I remove one? No. Okay, bringing it in the home stretch, number 7. What is the moral of this movie anyway? So the Hugh Laurie monologue isn't the only preachy moment in the movie. Actually, like, a lot of it is very preachy. If the moral of the movie was just make more retro-futuristic movies because they're really neato, that would be fine. I'd be like, yeah, that's a moral I can get behind. Early on in the movie, they have Casey tell that story of the 2 wolves. Like, camp counselors say it's a Native American story, but I don't know if that's true. So it's the story where there's 2 wolves fighting inside of you, and one is despair and one is hope, and which one wins? The one you feed. And they keep repeating this story through the whole movie. And there's this montage at the beginning where Casey is at school. All the teachers are totally bumming her out because they're talking about nuclear war and global warming and dystopian literature. Casey keeps, like, raising her hand, and they're not calling on her. Then a teacher finally calls on her, and she's very smugly like, well, how do we fix it? The teacher just, like, gawps at her open-mouthed like a buffoon. And he's like, what? She's like, I get that things are bad, but what are we doing to fix it? And it's treated like this big mic drop moment. The teacher just stares, dumbfounded. He has no answer. But I'm like, no, the thing Casey said wasn't a rebuttal to the lecture. She was just stating the super obvious point to it. The teacher didn't just bring up the polar ice caps melting because he thinks that's cool and awesome to look at. You don't study 1984 to remind you that things are already bad. The whole point of dystopian literature is to encourage positive change to stop it from happening. Hugh Laurie says that people love dystopian fiction because it encourages them to be lazy, because they're like, oh, the world's bad anyway, it's fine. Like, what? Did Hugh Laurie just read The Dust Jacket on his copy of 1984? Because I'm pretty sure the moral of that book wasn't like, go on, I want to see where they're going with this. When we first meet Casey, there's this whole metaphor that totally undermines the entire message of the movie. NASA wants to tear down their old rocket launch towers because there's no money going into rocket launches anymore. So Casey gets in and she damages all the tractors and cranes so that they won't be able to do that as quickly. Well, guess what, Casey? Even if the towers stay up, they're still not launching rockets, are they? It's kind of like you're just slapping a band-aid on a larger, more complex issue to make yourself feel good in the moment. Hey, I get it, Casey. The lack of interest in the space program is bad. But what are we doing to fix it? The big stakes at the end of the movie are that George Clooney has this big future scene device, and it foretold a dystopian future that's gonna happen in like 2 months. And glimpses of a better future only become possible when Casey feels optimism that the future can be good again. So it's like, hey, let's not talk about the bad stuff that's gonna happen, because if we pretend like everything's fine and make some robot butlers and some rocket packs, then everything will turn out great. Our optimism makes it so. But like, wait a second, last I checked, that wasn't finding a solution either. So in one corner, you've got this straw man who's catastrophizing and planning for the world to end and like happy about it, resigned to it, not trying to prevent it at all. And then you have protagonist Casey and all her fun buddies, and they know what's best for the future is to just make cool stuff and not worry about it and just have fun. So I don't like either of these people. It's almost like mankind faces a lot of complex issues without easy solutions. It's almost like dystopian stories are important because they're cool and edgy, and they work as cautionary tales. And cheesy, starry-eyed retro future movies are important because they inspire you and make you happy. Usually. It's almost like these are 2 totally different genres of movie and not fiercely opposed sides in a debate where we have to pick a winner. Like, maybe they aren't 2 wolves fighting and one of them has to die, and maybe we can have robot butlers and try to stop the polar bears from disappearing. And this movie's weirdest of all because it threatens us with this idea that if we don't make fewer dystopian movies, we will descend into a dystopia, which makes this a dystopian movie. Anyway, that's my list of things. It just sucks because I wanted to like this movie so much. And there was stuff that I liked. I liked the over-the-top score that was like going into overdrive the entire time. And I liked a lot of the actors, especially the kids. I thought they were great. And I also, when I was rewatching it, kept noticing that I liked a lot of the dialogue. Like, it had a lot of solid jokes. So it's not even like I can say the writing was bad, because like, it was clearly written by someone with like some wit, but the story was just a huge mess. The story was like Tomorrowland at the end of the movie, where it's just like falling apart and you're like, what happened? And for that matter, what happened to Tomorrowland? Like, But anyway, the stuff that worked just made everything that didn't work a lot more painful. So also it looked like the sequel would have been really cool, but then the movie made no money, so they're not going to make a sequel. The worst thing was that when it bombed financially, the studio was like, well, it's just because original stories don't make any money. Or okay, it didn't fail because the story was bad. It failed because people can't handle innovation. Let's just stop innovation. Thanks, Tomorrowland, for sending that message. Like who was that spokesperson? Was it Hugh Laurie in a crazy space jacket? So the best we can hope for now is that it gets the Tron treatment, where it develops an undeserved cult following, and then they make a kind of lame sequel in 20 years. Because anything is possible! If I wrote a Space Mountain movie, space travel would work like you get in this rickety toboggan that feels like it was built in the 1970s. You're sitting there why is this not enclosed? Oh, we already activated your oxygen shields. They're invisible. They're cranking you up this lift hill, getting ready to launch you into space. It's clicking and stuff. I don't feel good about that. What about gravity? You pulled down your lap bar, right? Where do I put my purse? If you look in front of you, there's a little mesh bag, and if it doesn't fit in there, just hold it with your feet. That's fine.